Yes, he did.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Well, it's Valentine's weekend. We'll see how much love is around the big green table for this edition of Donnybrook as we meet our panelists, starting with the media veteran herself. She is Wendy Wiese, the news director for the Big 550 KTRS. And along with Wendy, we have Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Ray Hartmann from the Riverfront Times and the Big 550 KTRS, and from the St. Louis American 590 AM, 97.1 FM, and the St. Louis American, Alvin, Reid. And Bill, I think we'll start with you. I think the big story this week was that Jon Belmar, the county police chief, rather unexpectedly resigned the same day that the county announced it had reached a $10 million plus agreement with Keith Wildhaber, who was the police officer who sued, said that he hadn't been given promotions 23 times because he was gay. A jury agreed with it, so he's going to clear at least $6 million. Belmar's leaving. Wildhaber will be a lieutenant for diversity and inclusion. So is it all's well that ends well?
Well, I don't know. If I were the new lieutenant, I'd want to be more than a diversity officer. If I was a policeman and was a sergeant, wanted to be a lieutenant, I wouldn't really be happy with them saying to me, okay, well, you're a lieutenant. Report in once a month on diversity. You know, I mean, if he's happy, that's great. As far as, but I wouldn't be if I were him. As far as Chief Belmar, you know, he just had a black cloud over him from the beginning. I mean, first of all, he had to succeed Tim Fitch, who was a great people person and especially terrific with the media. And it put Chief Belmar, you know, he just didn't measure up in that regard. And no sooner does he become chief than we have Michael Brown and Ferguson. And, you know, and then he gets the Wildhaber stuff. So things just weren't working out for the chief, and I hope he has a terrific retirement.
Now, as part of the negotiations, I don't know what they discussed, but I'd be willing to bet that part of it was Wildhaber said, like, all right, if I'm going to, before we start talking numbers, the first thing that has to happen is that he has to go, okay? And then maybe the county police department on their side says, well, tell you what, he goes, we can talk him into retirement or we'll fire him or whatever. He goes, but you stay a lieutenant of diversity and do that job, cushy, you know, and then you're not in dealing with everyday, you know, police officers and police work. So that could have all been part of the negotiation. But I will say this, I think Belmar was leaving, whatever they're going to say about he was going to retire anyway, I don't believe that. I think he was in his bunker and he was going to just fight it out until, you know.
I know, but.
Well, I think the new board was going to get rid of him.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely, because
Well,
he
I
had
don't
the
know.
Ethical Society of Police lining up against him. With this, he had the LGBTQ. They were not, obviously, they were not in his corner. He had quite a few enemies, you know, being marshaled from various corners, so he was not going to be effective. But you're right about the diversity officer position, because I think that is terribly condescending. You know, it's and I obviously he wanted to rise within the ranks of the department, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with being, you know, with somebody who has aspirations and is motivated, but he's a cop. He wants to be a police officer, I'm sure.
I disagree.
Be a leader of men and women.
I disagree.
Right, exactly.
I think that first of all, as far as I don't think that realistically his settlement would have affected. I can't imagine Belmar being part of that discussion because there's a lot of money he got. I will say this, that it is interesting that his career, Belmar's career is bookended by Ferguson and the Wildhaber case. That's just amazing, really. I think Belmar was forced out. I mean, it would seem to be. But as far as the diversity inclusion position, I think they have a real cultural problem in the police department, and I don't think it's a once-a-month thing. I think it's a legitimate position that Keith Wildhaber seems to be embracing, that will probably involve lots of training and lots of involvement in cases.
As a matter of fact, as you know,
I think it's a real job.
That position is more and more popular around the country. So
well, they understand they got
but I don't think if there was a deal, though, if there was a secret deal, they wouldn't have them walk out the same day there was a settlement. And also, don't forget that in Missouri now, it's almost impossible to get rid of your local police chief. So the police chiefs, thanks to action by the General Assembly like 4 years ago, are almost impossible to fire. So I'm not so sure he would have been pushed out by the police board at all.
A police board could have.
No, can't.
Oh, I don't.
According to legislation, you can't do that anymore.
Well,
you wouldn't want to be the chief, Charlie, if the new board was insisting
that
you
you're out.
Step out,
right?
And you're there saying, no, I'm going to stay in, and their police union said it was time for a change. You know, I mean, every events were just pushing.
Well, and Sam Page is looking more and more, less and less like a physician and more like a politician with each passing day, because Lisa Clancy asked Chief Belmar to step down. Sam Page and Lisa Clancy are, together and everything, and then, Sam Page is greasing the skids and, oh, yes, this was absolutely in Colonel Belmar's plans all along. I just think that's disingenuous, and that we...
Charlie,
well, I don't think
quick,
it's news that Sam's a politician.
I'll give you an example, okay?
No.
I still read the Lansing paper because I used to work there. Sure. Mark D'Antonio, their beloved and respected football coach, was getting sued. And some additional charges got slapped on there about, wrongdoing he was doing. He resigned at 2 o'clock the next afternoon, and then got up on a podium and said the two have nothing to do with it.
Right,
all right, gotta move on. Ray, let's move on. I know you'll be taking comments and questions about this on your turn.
Afraid so.
Turns out this week, Ben Frederickson of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch had an interesting column where he showed that Andy Abbott and the folks, he's the headmaster, I believe, at John Burroughs, have announced that they're dropping Lutheran North High School from the football schedule. In recent years, the two teams have been 5-5. But most recently, Lutheran North has really beaten up on many teams, including John Burroughs. So, for a variety of reasons, including, I guess, citing that Lutheran North has a lot of transfers now, and Burroughs doesn't want to get into that. And there's a safety issue with the lines. The offensive and defensive lines have huge weight disparities. John Burroughs has said, even though we're in the same conference, we're not going to play you football anymore. What did you think about that?
Well, first of all, that was a great column. Really well done column by Ben Fred. And that's, that's good. Where was Burroughs when they had Ezekiel Elliott?
On top.
Elliott, where he played like 3 years and nobody tackled him for 3 years. I mean, it's
he
like
ran right over
he
people.
just crushed people. Where was Burroughs like then? And so
they were at the top.
I just think it's kind of hypocritical.
I thought they were 15.
I mean, this idea that this is a safety issue. Come on. I mean, it's like no one wants to lose, but the whole tone of this new coach getting those people, or whatever it was. I don't
think he said those people. Don't say that.
I don't want to say that, but whatever it was. But the point is, it was.
But
I didn't like it.
But Burroughs.
And they can, by the way, they can play whoever they want. I guess.
Right. Burroughs' coach is a black man.
Right.
So. I don't think he was in favor of dropping Lutheran North because it makes Burroughs look bad in a bunch of different ways, and very unfortunate for them.
Except if you have one school, you have to admit, if you are Lutheran North and you're accepting a lot of transfer students from other high schools, and MSHA, the state body that oversees this, has no problem with it. But nonetheless, if you're Burroughs and you're not going to play that game, then how competitive can you be on the football field?
Well, okay. Well, I went to public school, and right now DeSmet has got a tremendous football team winning the state championship. Now, there is talk among public high school fans and coaches like we should do something where we just don't even play them anymore because it's not fair. But I'm thinking like, no, you play them and you beat them. So I would feel the same way about Burroughs.
But isn't that where we are today? If I don't think it's fair, then I'm going to take my bat and my ball and I'm going to go home, instead of saying to these kids, look, yeah, you know what, Lutheran North, they are formidable. You know, these are big guys, but if you want to play football, that's the price of playing football. You have to try to be as big as you can be.
You know, when I was talking to Ben about this today, he said to me that he imagines that if he were to talk to the Burroughs football team, that they would agree with you. That high school athletes, they want to play.
Right.
And they want to beat people that are better than them. That this isn't driven, according to Ben's theory, isn't driven by the kids or by the coach, but by the parents who've gone to the headmaster.
And what are the parents?
An increasing number of parents really dislike football because they're hearing about all sorts of
you know what? Then your child should be on the chess team.
Right.
You can't be on the football
or the
team.
soccer team.
Or play flag
well,
football.
soccer's also, you got CTE there too. But
Charlie.
what they're saying is the size of one team is so much bigger than the
just
other,
ridiculous.
it's not
Yeah,
competitive.
that's why I say, look, if John Burroughs said, because of the concussion problem, whatever, we are no longer going to have football, I would totally respect that. If that's their concern on safety, no one would question them, and there's no mandate that a high school have a football team. Just like St. Louis University doesn't have a football team. You know, but if you're going to have a football team, and you just had a great football team that was winning state championships, and now you're going through a down period,
Right. Give them
don't
something
make it
to
about
work for.
safety.
You
Well,
can't treat them like
And by the way, I'm
figure
not suggesting
skaters.
there was any nefarious motives by Burrough.
Okay.
I just think it was...
Very well. Let's move on.
You know.
Alvin, Reid, this week it was reported, I believe, by Jacob Kern of the St. Louis Business Journal, that attendance at the Arch actually is down, even after we put $400 million in renovations, about half of it public money. 1996, we had 3.6 million visitors at the Gateway Arch. 2012, 2.5 million. Last 2 years, down to 2 million. Even after we have a new museum, a lid over the depressed lanes, which were Highway 70, now they're Highway 44. We pour in close to $500 million and attendance goes down. What is this, the new loop trolley?
I don't think it's that bad, but it is worth trying to figure out what's going on. And I can't say that because you now could walk from downtown to the Arch ground that somehow is taking, visits away from the Arch. But with that being said, there's this crazy theory, and, people have their, favorite place, and then the management announces that, boy, we're going to refurbish the whole thing, and we're going to get new this and do that, and the old-time patrons walk in and say, I don't like this as much. I don't know if that's what it is, but it's something, and I don't think it should be ignored.
I think it looks great. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think it looks great, having been there. And first of all, it wasn't $400 million to invest in traffic at the Arch. It's a national monument. It's a national park, and this wasn't intended to drive attendance. I don't know.
Yes, it was. They specifically said it's going to increase attendance 33%.
They promised it.
All right, well, but I mean...
That's why they raised the taxes.
But the attendance is probably a function of national travel and other things. I mean, it's not all local people going
For
to the
heaven's
Arch.
sakes, are we overlooking the elephant in the room? With perception is reality, and the perception when it comes to our downtown area is Murderers
Okay,
Row.
good point.
So that is definitely playing into this. I could sit here and I could effuse. I mean, I could go on and on about the Arch. It is absolutely spectacular. I'm like everybody else who grew up here. I went on field trips. I took my children. But going into that museum and seeing all of the work, it is absolutely, it will blow your ears off. If you haven't been there, it is really something to see.
Maybe so, but I think that for a long time we were told that the Arch was bifurcated from the rest of downtown and that people couldn't cross. I never accepted that. I always saw little old ladies crossing the street to get to Mass at the old cathedral. They did take down the parking garage that was on the grounds of the Arch, and so now people have to walk, I think, a little bit further. And even though, we're all into local history, I don't know if everybody is into local St. Louis history.
I just feel like it's more, I may have misunderstood. I thought the deal was to connect it more to downtown, which I think they succeeded in doing.
You're right, you're right.
And they did that. I do think Wendy's got a great point about the crime. And again, there's also, I'd be interested to see what other national, what the
Some are down,
traffic
you're right,
is
yeah.
for national monuments.
Well, and I don't think it happens overnight.
Right,
You know, I don't
and
think-
it's strictly a tourism thing, right? I mean,
Right.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
it isn't like people who live here are going down 2 or 3 times a year.
Well, they'd like
So,
that.
so
Well, they should.
if there's fewer people going to the Arch, it simply means there are fewer tourists in downtown, and I think Wendy's right about crime.
Wendy, let me ask you about a brawl between 2 high school cheerleading teams, Trinity and East St. Louis. And this was one of those cheerleading competitions where it's a little bit in your face, and it turns out that it resulted in fisticuffs. Some of the girls were trying to prevent the others from fighting. Leaders of both schools decided to cancel the entire seasons for both the East St. Louis cheerleaders and as well as the Trinity cheerleaders. And I thought, yeah, why not look at the videotape and punish those who threw punches, but why punish all of the girls for the actions of a few?
Because life's not fair. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. Life isn't fair, and these girls have learned a valuable lesson. I'm sure that I am positive that the sponsors of the cheerleading squad, they know, they could see with their own eyes the girls who were trying to, clamp and tamp things down and calm people down. And I believe they will be rewarded down the line for that. What struck me about this story was the administrators and the superintendents and all of that, and the girls coaches would say safety is the most important. We are most concerned about the safety of the kids. Maybe if one of your also a top priority was teaching the kids that kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable, especially how staggering that a Catholic school was out there brawling. I mean, it's not acceptable regardless, but no, it's not acceptable regardless, but that's, you have to admit, we have some religious.
You went to a Catholic school, I went to a Catholic school. Let's not pretend that we're holier than thou.
No, not at all. But I mean, it's just kind of funny. I don't think that was one of the commandments. Brawl and let it be, that they learn in Catholic school. But no, I think that it ought to be a priority. That kind of behavior is not accepted. I mean, it's rather than keeping them safe, let's
Ray, you went to a
teach them right from wrong.
I went to a public school. I have to admit, when I saw this story, I thought the religious angle isn't really what jumped out at me. I mean, it's just, you don't see cheerleaders fighting every day. It's a team. They're teams. I mean, and so you
Together
can't. You're gonna have to. I mean, it wasn't like they threw them out of school. They just suspended the team, which they really had to do. And I mean, these are teams. And what are you gonna have, like 2 of them left out there cheering? I mean, it's teams, and it's. I think Wendy's right. They needed to have a lesson.
No, I'd talk to the whoever the coaches or the adult supervisors are. I watched the video, and the girls from East St. Louis were coming right up onto the girls from Trinity and kicking, as part of their routine. And it was clear something bad was going to happen. The sides taunting, and somebody has to be an adult there. And when they watch us step forward and say, oh, okay, time out, calm down.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. That's a fact. I was just going to say that. But both teams suspended rest of the year.
Right.
For those of you who are seniors, you'll always be able to look back and say, like, how did your senior year of cheerleading end? Well, you can look it up online. All right. No, and there's always some kind of excuse to be found about, well, this isn't right for the kids. Well, you were part of that team. Same thing with Cardinal Ritter's football team. Same with these cheerleaders. You saw this going sideways while you were out there, okay? Mm-hmm. You were the first people to know that something is about to happen here. But yet, it happened, okay? Somebody has to be held accountable, and thus it's this entire team.
But Alvin, on the hockey rink, if a couple of players get in a fight, they don't bench the entire team.
Apples and oranges. Oh,
These
by
are
the way,
I think it is. It's the same.
cheerleaders,
What
Charlie.
about the seniors, Alvin, who aren't going to the state championship? They might lose their scholarship. They don't have a chance to perform at the state finals in Springfield or wherever they are.
Well, you know what? They should have thought that before they were out there fighting. Then two, that you know, the idea about what happens in a hockey game, if 5 or 6 guys on each team jumped out there on that ice
They're
and
gonna
had
lose
it
the
out,
game.
that's it. They would say, like,
Hey,
right.
let me
Also,
just say-
but
let
wait
me
a
just say,
minute,
you guys,
Charlie, I need to say this, though. Hockey is a club sport. Hockey does not belong to the schools that actually, you know, do them, at least public schools anyway. That they're club sports. They're sanctioned maybe to wear Kirkwood, but if
Maybe not in all
if you
cases.
no, I'm not saying that, but most public schools, if you got in a fight, like or 3 or 4 guys literally started fighting on the ice, they're done.
Well,
I guarantee
let me
they're
just
done
say,
for the
for
season.
the record, for everybody out there in television land, if any of these colleagues of mine are guilty of gross violations, I am not going down. I am going to be back here the next Thursday night.
No, if all 5 of us
Who said
just
words?
started brawling right here on camera, there wouldn't be no Donnybrook next week.
I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm not going to be part of it.
Again, to compare cheerleaders to hockey players kind of lost me on that.
Yeah.
That's my whole
Maybe
point.
they thought they were hockey players.
What is unusual about this, and I feel bad for these kids. I mean, you know, it'd been nice if there could have been some lesser punishment, maybe, but it isn't
Oh,
like
man,
no, I'm
Ray.
just saying. I agree with it though. I agree with what they did because cheerleading it's a privilege to be in this. It's not a right, and so I mean,
Listen
all right.
to you sounding
Yeah, seriously.
but whoever thought this Sharks and the Jets thing between girls in this day and age is the Sharks and the Jets.
Yeah.
We get
West
West
Side
Side Story.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But anybody who thought that you know, face to face, and the AV guy up in the top of the audit or the gymnasium, he could see what was happening.
Right. But
The
they tape
people on
all
the
of East
floor.
St. Louis.
He'll be banned.
Yeah.
By the way, there was a religious aspect to this, and when I saw Trinity, which it had been involved in some other, you know, coach mysteriously fired and other things like that. I do think there's something to that, and it didn't, like you say, jump
Well,
off.
no, it's
but
absolutely.
yes, but
Well,
absolutely, I thought
if
about
you're-
that.
By the
Sending
way,
your
remind
child-
me, when that one kid from the local high school football team cheated, did they get rid of the entire team?
Yeah, they were suspended for the rest of the
the
season.
rest
Okay,
of the
very
season.
well. Bill, Richmond Heights police officer finds a homeless guy in Richmond Heights and asks him, where do you live? The guy says, downtown. So the Richmond Heights police officer drops him in downtown St. Louis. And, of course, downtown residents are furious, saying, you know, you're a county. Why don't you take care of the homeless in your own county? Who's right on this one?
Well, it's nuanced. I mean, the services are downtown, but I think it's really unseemly when the county police departments are bringing homeless people downtown, and the Richmond Heights interim or acting police chief made a crazy statement, I thought, about, you know, well, we're doing him a favor, and really people should be thankful to our officer. And, you know, why in the world would city residents be thankful to an officer bringing a homeless person downtown and saying, here, citizens of St. Louis, you pay for this? I mean, I thought Lyda Cruson was right that, you know, okay, we don't want anybody to be, you know, out on the street and the services are downtown, but the rest of the region has to pick up more of the money. I mean, you can't be dropping homeless people downtown and act like you're doing the city a favor. I mean, Richmond Heights and Clayton and Wildwood, everybody should be taking more ownership of the homeless problem.
But don't forget, the city does get federal grants to help the
Sure,
homeless, which
sure.
the county does not.
And the guy said he lived downtown. Right. The man said he lived downtown. So I understand what you're saying. You don't get a cookie and a pat on the head for taking somebody, a human being, where he wants to go. What I am more upset about is this continuation of this ridiculous city county, you know, it's this Mason-Dixon line right between. When I was growing up, do you ever recall the animosity between the city dwellers hating the county? This is not a city-county issue. This is a regional problem. And Bill is right. No, Bill is right. And we all have to do more, you know, probably have to pay more of our fair share
Right.
when it
If
comes to
the
taking care of
services are
them.
downtown,
Absolutely.
fine. But
we
you
all
can't
have to
expect
pony up.
Yeah, act like we're doing
But
the city a favor.
stop with this ridiculous, oh, the county, oh, it's not.
I agree. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying I agree with you, and I think that it is. One of the things that would be nice is if the city was part of the county, which it should be, and then maybe we could deal a little better regionally that way. I happen to think that would be a good thing. Maybe I read the chief's statement differently, but I think it was, I really think the officer was just trying to do a nice thing. I mean, I don't think
Me
he
too.
was.
Yeah,
That's
well,
all
it
he
wasn't.
needed. Right.
I don't see the officer having done anything wrong at all.
Well, if all the services are downtown and there's a guy homeless in the winter in Richmond Heights, I understand taking him downtown. But I thought the chief's attitude was a little bit, you know, should thank us. I thought,
I
what
just
are you
didn't read it
talking
that
about?
way.
Well, I have a solution.
Okay.
The city and the county should have a cheer-off.
There you go.
Hey, Wendy Wiese,
man.
this past weekend, the Battlehawks, our new XFL football team, were on television.
Is that
and
it?
They
Yeah,
actually,
I'm still working on it.
They drew more viewers than the St. Louis Blues hockey game on Saturday night, and they were. Was this a big? Only 30 seconds to go. Is Stan Kroenke sorry he moved the Rams?
I don't really care, but my husband came downstairs, and for the first time in I don't know how many years since Stan and took the Rams away, he was happy. He said your Battlehawks are up, and I was like, oh wow, it is exciting, and it is something to be happy about. And I say, caw.
Yeah, but real quick, we're the Battlehawks, not the Battle Crows. Whoever came up with that, I don't know.
Right, what is it?
I'm going to get a credential. I'm going to go.
You're gonna go.
I can't quite put
He's not buying a ticket.
I can't
No, a lot of people
ratchet
are-
it up to true excitement, but
You
hey,
will.
Okay,
You
I'm
will
going to
be.
take it out.
Speaking of true excitement, let's see the love letters on this Valentine's weekend. Having the Republicans hold 70-odd% of the state representative seats when only 50% of the voters lean Republican is absolutely bananas, says Jane Baker of St. Louis. We also heard from Patricia Haynes, who wrote, regarding your discussion of clean Missouri, the advertisements for it prior to the election were all about ethics rules for politicians. No one voted for redistricting. No one. Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Rich Lakehob writes, I saw Charlie wearing that beautiful purple sport jacket on Donnybrook. I'd like to have one. If you bought it in St. Louis, would you please let me know where you purchased it? I think they're talking to you, Alvin.
It was brown suede.
I wore blue.
I don't know.
Well, maybe Joseph A. Banks. We both go there.
Yes.
Hey, you can write us care of KETC, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Don't forget those emails, letters at ketc.org, and those tweets. Hashtag Donnybrook STL. Don't forget to listen to us on your favorite podcast source, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. Thank you very much for joining us on this Valentine's weekend. Tell you what, there's more to come as the ambassadors of love, Ray Hartmann and Alvin Reid, take your phone calls and read your tweets. The rest of us will see you next week at this time. Thanks for joining us.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Cold night in St. Louis. First and foremost, my mom was born on Valentine's Day. Happy birthday, Mom. Tomorrow.
nice.
Little.
That's very nice.
But happy birthday. All right, Ray Hartmann, Alvin Reid. We're going to start with Jim in South City. Hi, Jim.
Why, good evening. I would like to make a comment on the Gateway Arch and access to the riverfront. And I would like to make a challenge to anyone sitting around the green table tonight on Channel 9 to gain access from the riverfront from the north side, coming down Cass Avenue to how does one get to the riverfront? I'm wondering if some GPSs even know where the riverfront is. Right now, today, I have been involved working on the riverfront or access or to the riverfront since 1968. And this latest quote-unquote improvement is just disastrous. One, coming down from the north, one has to go through in front of the casino to find their way down streets, a street that may be open. Not every street is open to the riverfront, Wharf Street, or now Lenore K. Sullivan Boulevard, which Lenore Sullivan was a fine lady, but I object to the name that was changed to the street.
It was Wharf Street, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Jim. Hey,
I think he's got an interesting point.
yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. You know, I have not been going to the riverfront, but if you come back via another bridge other than, you know, Poplar Street Bridge, when you come off,
oh man,
it's kind of amazing how to get back.
I've got totally lost in there. Coming over the what's the other bridge called? Not the Pop.
And not the Eads.
I don't know, whatever it's called. But no, I know what you're talking about. And I think he's got a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're going down to, I mean, because I don't spend a lot of time in the landing anymore, but just that whole area going down the Four Seasons.
Right. So, good point.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's lending its hand.
Good point. Well, let's go to Sharon from Webster Groves. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, I'm calling about going to the Arch also. My cousin was here from California, and I would have loved to have taken him down there. But he's a Vietnam vet with a bad hip. He can't walk. And I have no idea where handicap parking is anymore. We sure can't do 2 blocks.
Okay.
That's an interesting
Have you
question.
called, Sharon?
I would think they can
called?
accommodate that.
You know, I guess it's Jefferson Expansion Memorial, like number, and voice that you have a problem, and maybe they could tell you exactly where the parking places are. I don't know that they're any closer than 2 blocks, but I'm sure they must have something.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
Okay, Matthew in South City. How are you doing tonight, Matthew?
Hey, good evening. Good evening. Thanks for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thank you. I want to talk about the copper dropping off the homeless guy, and I mean, I don't see what the big deal is as far as, you know, him getting all the praise for giving the guy a ride. I mean, he drops him off down here. I mean, I work in the county. He could give me a ride back. That'd be nice.
Yeah, well, it depends on what kind of ride he's giving you, you know.
I'm just saying. I mean, hey, you know, I live in the city. People drop off things here all the time. And believe me, we got a huge homeless problem. I feel bad for these guys that are out there sleeping on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
They're sleeping. They're cold, man. I walk right by them every day on the bus, and it's hard. But you're gonna bring them from the county. I mean, was he in the front seat or the back seat, do you think?
I imagine you can't sit in the front. He was in the back, so. But he asked for a ride, and the guy gave him a ride. I'm just going to give the police officer a break.
I was just going to say, I don't understand what the police officer did wrong. I mean, was he still on duty, or was he taking him home after work?
No, I think he was just on duty, but.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
That's controversial where I think there is.
I guess. Let's go to Dave. But we appreciate the call, though.
Absolutely.
Dave from St. Charles. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Hey.
What's on your mind, Dave?
Yeah, we're right here. Go right ahead.
Hey, wanted to talk about the John Burroughs Cardinal Ritter situation and what's happening. And I would like to point out that the problem is, according to Missouri State High School Activity Association rules, any transfer for athletic purposes deems that player ineligible. Well, it's become a joke. I mean, there's not a secret that all of a sudden a school like Trinity that had never won a district championship in 1 year had 15 Division I football players move in there, and they won a state championship. I mean, that didn't just happen. That's athletic purpose. And Alvin, I think you hit on I want to kind of build a little bit on a point you made about the hockey, that it's not a school-sanctioned sport. And I'm afraid what's happened with football and other sports as well is, even though they're still school-sanctioned, in some cases the schools are losing control. It used to be in Misha, you could not be a head coach unless you were a full-time teacher at that school. And you can't do that anymore. And they can't find enough coaches. So the rules have been changed, and you're getting basically, these guys are little league coaches that are moving into these schools, and they're like mercenary. They're not really involved. We like to think the schools, a coach moves in and works with kids 2 or 3 or 4 years, builds this good program. That's not what's happened at Lutheran North. I mean, that's just unbelievable, the amount of talent they moved in there. And give you another example, even goes farther. They played Caruthersville last year, a town of 4,000 people in southeast Missouri, and beat them in the semifinals 65-0. The semifinal. So Caruthersville was a good small school team. They're drawn from a community of about 4,000, not 4.5 million.
That's some interesting information. I actually didn't. You're more up on sports, obviously. I didn't realize that you didn't have to teach it to school.
No, yeah, about 20 years now.
I'm a little behind. No, I didn't realize. And I will say this. on behalf of Burroughs, because I'll stick to my guns that they didn't have this problem when they had Zeke. But, you know, I don't think it's okay to have these schools, and you see these programs nationally that just sort of exist to recruit athletes.
The academies.
I'm not loving any of that. So I don't, you know, it seems to me that there ought to be some tangential relationship between a high school and its football team.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so it's great points. I appreciate it.
All right, I guess we got some tweets. Yale Hollander, I think Belmar's greatest positive legacy was that he was not responsible for the loop trolley.
That's my man, Yale Hollander. He's a frequent guest now.
Yes.
Carl Robert, too, writes, tweets, the purpose of sports at the high school level is not only to learn how to win, but also how to learn how to lose. Hopefully, graciously, John Burroughs should keep Lutheran North on their schedule and improve their game.
And Joni, 820-35791. The Arch, 1. The loss of the parking garage is a big problem. 2. It was fun to walk into the Arch by one of the legs. 3. Walking distance to get into the Arch from the old courthouse is exhausting for older people. Went last summer, and friends said, never again. Hashtag Donnybrook STL. Fire a tweet our way. Where are we going? To Doug? Doug in South City.
Bill, I think you guys forgot one thing when you were talking about the loss of people coming to the Arch, and that was back in the 90s, we were still part of a major hub for the airlines. There are a lot of people that are not coming to St. Louis or through St. Louis and stopping off and looking at the Arch and stuff. The fact that we have less people coming to the city, except for the conventions and stuff, that's going to make a big deal for the people visiting the Arch.
Okay, I hear you, Doug, and I think you're right. At the same time, we lost the hub at a time where attendance at the Arch was at a level, and it stayed at that level. It's just now suddenly it has dropped. So I hear what you're saying, and Bill made that point too, and it's probably correct. We probably just have less tourists. Now we have to figure out why we have less tourists.
Well, when I saw the museum and I saw the new things that the Arch did, I was so impressed. And with each passing caller, I'm feeling this little voice going, walk this back, walk this back. I may not know what I'm talking about, because some of these concerns are really well taken, and I just based on how nice I thought it looked, but maybe we'll see.
And look, I need to help out on this, because I have, like Wendy said, Arch, part of my entire life. Kids, people coming into town for the first time, relatives, all that. I've just been on a gap where I have not been since it reopened, only because no one to take or whatever, but maybe I just need to physically go.
Maybe, and maybe we all ought to start taking into account some of these concerns. The aquarium's really easy to get around. I went there. Let's go to Marianne from South City. Hi, Marianne.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Well, hello, gentlemen. I'm fine, thank you. I'm also calling about the low attendance at the Arch this past year, and I think that the long-term flooding had something to do with it. My brother and sister-in-law visited from Pennsylvania. They wanted to go to the Arch, but they really wanted to go on the cruise on the river, and the cruises were shut down, and I don't think it was open again until like July. Again, my sister-in-law handicapped, and it was a distance to walk from the parking garage. And so I think that some of the concerns that the earlier callers had expressed about getting around downtown and my brother trying to figure out how to exit and get us back home on the highways, that all plays into it, I think.
All right.
All right.
We're kind of hearing a steady drum roll here, and I think
Alvin, like I was saying to you earlier, I have some real problems with this whole Arch thing. I don't know what to. I think this needs to be investigated.
I love this because we have such knowledgeable callers. I'm serious. Let's go to Georgia in Clayton. Hi, Georgia.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for taking my call. This is about the Arch. We had people in town a couple summers ago, all ages, from teenagers to in their 70s and 80s. And when you parked on the north parking lot and came from the north, you have a long way to walk, no shade, no place to sit. You actually get close to the Arch. And then you go and you're at that north leg and you think, oh, I'm in. No, the north leg, you can't go in. They send you over to the other leg. And it's beautiful when you get in there. The museum's beautiful. But we had a physician in our group who said, how did this get approved? How did ADA approve this? And he said, someone needs to know there's no help for handicap at all. There's no benches along the way. There's no signs. We had people who could walk, but it was hard for them.
Okay.
But someone who couldn't walk at all could not get in there at all.
All right.
Georgia, this is why I led the protest over the arch thing. I'm going to. I feel bad because I pride myself on very strong views about disability rights. If this is true, we really ought to be talking about this.
And during the show, I said, like, look, somebody needs to look into what is going on, which is what was my point. And now I feel naive. I'm being educated that obviously people, I hope people have shared these concerns with not just us, because obviously, boy, this is it sounds like something is up. So
educated is one word. Being schooled might be the other word. Sharon from South County, let me guess, what's on your mind? What's on your mind, Sharon?
Hi, I'm calling to say that Wendy hit on part of the reason was because of the crime. I've had relatives and friends that tried to go, and when they hear the news, they just thought, oh, absolutely no way.
Okay. And look, as much as, and Wendy said it best, like perception, and that's a major part of it. But I've heard the same thing. And before everybody says, like, well, that's just people that are snobs, or they're this, or they're that. I said, like, no, some people I know who I find to be very level-headed and whatnot said, like, it is a concern of mine, and if they can voice it, then it really is reality. So
well, I was going to say, perception is reality. I mean, and that's why I'm always urging us not to overstate it, but there's no running from that, reality.
But that's all places too. And there's places within downtown that aren't losing visitors. So this might be unique to the Arch.
And I think it is important to remember, we've got issues in the county too. It's not just the city of St. Louis. I think sometimes we do focus too much on that, but certainly no one disagrees that that's a factor in attendance. Let's go to Ron from Soulard.
Hi, Ron.
Well, good evening. Thank you for taking my call. First, I want to remind Ray, I've been watching your program so long. Ray was against using city sales tax money for the Arch, but I have the solution. I have the perfect answer. We should run the trolley across the riverfront. Thank you very much.
If we can get it from here to there, then we have an idea.
I don't remember being against. I mean, I was for the Arch tax thing. I don't know what.
I would.
But Eddie, good for you, Ron, if you've been keeping track. Who's next?
Bill in Rock Hill. Hi, Bill.
Good evening, gentlemen.
How are you, Bill?
More Arch stuff. Part of the problem down there goes back nearly 60 years when they put the 3rd Street Expressway there in the first place. That was a really stupid idea because...
Okay, Bill, not to interrupt you, man, but this is, 2020. Pick up.
Even at that, that they said putting that road there was a stupid idea. And then, of course, not only did they get rid of the parking lot at the north end of the grounds, they also got rid of all the parking down on the levee. And then they ripped out Washington Avenue. And they expect people to get off Metrolink at 8th and Pine and walk 10 blocks to the Arch. Now, the one guy that said the trolley idea, now maybe you don't need to build a trolley, but maybe it might be nice if the National Park Service or Metro ran a shuttle from 8th and Pine down to the Arch grounds.
So, hey, Bill, real quick. You can't park down on, like, what would you call it, the levee, like on the cobblestones. You can't park there anymore?
No, I think they've cut that off, and besides, half the time it's underwater.
Well, I understand that, but I understand, but if you can't park there, I mean, that's where I always used to park. So,
maybe that's got a lot to do with it.
That's another thing. Thanks, Bill. Let's move on.
This is why I'm leading a movement on this. Les, you can join. It's hashtag Fix the Arch. You can get to me. Leslie from Glen Carbon. What's on your mind, Leslie?
Hey, I just had an idea, but I think another caller already has taken it. My thought is to use the trolley, put some wheels on it, and then shuttle people.
The trolley?
Or not the trolley.
You're not talking about the loop trolley.
Yeah, but to shuttle
Yeah,
people.
the loop
Oh,
trolley.
the loop trolley.
But to shuttle people is a good idea.
I think the shuttle thing.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know. Here's another thing. I don't know that they don't have that already.
Yeah, we don't know.
Right.
We ought to find out.
And I'm like, well, all these are brilliant ideas. I just think that hopefully they had been thought of, because if you're downtown, you should be able to, a trolley should go around and take you past at least all the places that are downtown.
A lot of times we have these things. Like I know in Forest Park, I think it's Bi-State runs a trolley between the institutions that nobody ever seems to know about.
We got that.
I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see from Bi-State. 'Cause Bi-State does operate the tram in the Arch, and I think does that well. I don't know. I think these are some great questions our callers have raised, though, for real.
Because I honestly did not know. Like, you would think they would have some type of trolley or mass transportation between downtown sites. You would think that.
You would think.
Right. Chris in South St. Louis. How you doing, Chris?
Good evening, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Just fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I was calling you about a comment that Bill McClellan made earlier about the homeless guy. He's got the right idea. We all need to take on some ownership, all of us. And another thing, I think it's disgraceful that cop would take the time to take that guy downtown, and that's a loser. That cop's a loser for doing that.
All right. Well, I think I don't think he's a loser. I just don't think he did anything wrong. He just gave the guy and ran him down to the shelter he was staying in and then went back to work.
And I'm wondering if he actually maybe was at the end of his shift. It's just because I can see someone arguing, but the chief obviously was fine with it, the acting chief. But he could say, well, you don't want to take 20 minutes away from doing your job in Richmond Heights for this. But I don't know if we know all the full details.
Right.
And I think his heart was in the right place for sure.
And I guarantee you this, unless you're kind of like really cruel, think about that. And I'm a police officer, and I say, like, you're on your own, buddy. And something happens to the man overnight. And that would haunt me the rest of my life. So you can't do it for everybody, but on some cold night in St. Louis.
And it's so funny because we're always having issues with police officers when they're doing, things wrong. Here's somebody trying to do the right thing, and we're beating up on it.
Somebody's right. They're on him.
All right, so who's next?
Connie in Belleville.
Hi, Connie.
Hi, guys. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Listen, I just have to, not to go negative, really, I promise you. I don't want to do that. But to piggyback on what Wendy was saying, I agree with her a lot. And tonight she was spot on about the crime downtown. I live in Belleville, and I really have kind of curbed my adventuring over into St. Louis. I'm a senior citizen now, and it's not something that I look forward to. And I love St. Louis, and when I'm over there, I love the hustle and bustle during the day.
Okay.
And then when I think about, okay, do I want to go to an activity in the evening, and I think, I don't know. I used to volunteer there at Channel 9 sometimes, and I've even stopped doing that, and I loved it.
Oh, come back. We're fine.
Yeah, we're fine here.
I think people need to realize that there is, like here, well, you have to decide. Everybody's got to decide what's best for themselves. We'd sure love to have you back here, volunteer at Channel 9, and
well, I'm thinking about it because I miss you guys as well.
We hope you'll be back. Thank you for the call. Let's go to JR in the city, South City.
Yeah, concerning the arch.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, concerning the arch, I think what happened was the architect who designed it in the boardroom, nobody vetoed it because they didn't want to hurt his feelings. Okay, and also concerning the cheerleaders, who thought it was a good idea to have high school girls get in each other's face and say things like "your mama"?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. You can see that going sideways, So thanks, JR. And I didn't get the part about the arch because it's one of the most spectacularly designed
I think he was
monuments
talking
in the
about
world.
perhaps the lack of it. I really want to find out more about the lack of accessibility because that is really surprising to me, and I'm wondering if there isn't something we don't know.
Yeah.
That's a shock. If this is as true as our callers suggest, I have to tell you, they've got a really interesting point.
Yeah, they need to look into that.
Absolutely.
Dave in Defiance. Hi, Dave.
Thank you, gentlemen, for taking my call.
All right.
Great program. Great program like always tonight.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to mention the cheerleaders. I got a solution for them. Maybe the two teams can get together and play either roller derby or mud wrestling and raise money for charity.
Yeah. And all right. Thanks, Dave. But in all sincerity, apparently they're going to be getting together and working out their differences and
have a little
kind of have
conflict resolution
between the two, and maybe
which is probably
right.
Probably a better suggestion
than what happened before.
Than wrestling.
Yeah.
But thank you for the call. We appreciate it, Dave. And we'll go to Bob from Fairview Heights.
Yes. When my daughter visited from North Carolina, we parked at the apartments down there on the riverfront, and that worked out pretty good. Then about a year earlier, when I had visitors at Fairview, we took Metrolink down from Fairview down to the Arch grounds and just walked in. Now, I never did understand why they took out that parking lot on the north end. I think that was very expensive doing that in terms of lost parking.
Okay.
That's a good, that really is a good question. I don't remember what the rationale was, if that was just part of the aesthetics or, I don't know.
All right. And, you know, you have to have so many parking spaces for so many people. You know, that is designated. And, yeah, this is interesting. Oh, boy. Something's up.
This is a humbling episode
it definitely
of Your Turn. Who's next?
That'd be Deborah in Potosi. Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine.
Well, I would like to make a comment about the caller about 3 calls back when he said the police officer was a loser.
Yes, ma'am.
He needs to be reminded that that was an act of kindness, and people don't do that enough.
Right.
All right. And that's what I'm saying, too.
Thank you.
That was,
I think that's a great point.
That was not like a moment of law enforcement. That was just a moment of human kindness.
Yeah.
Being a good Samaritan.
And I don't risk my life going to work every day like police officers do. So you know, I'm willing to criticize police officers when I think they do wrong, but I sure don't. I just don't understand why we would be vilifying this guy.
Yeah. And I mean, how many homeless people am I going to drive by between here and my house when I leave, and not as much as roll the window down? So how am I going to be critical of a police officer that took that action?
Right. Let's go to Howard from Belleville.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, Howard.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of good comments about this arts business tonight, but the one comment I wanted to make was until you get a prosecutor that wants to prosecute...
Thank you. Let's go to David in Glendale. Hi, David.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good. Okay, great.
Go right ahead.
Doing good?
Well, we'll get...
Anyway,
hanging
I
in
want
there.
to make a statement about the arch. I used to work downtown, and I knew every way in or out of the Wharf Street area, all the back roads and everything else. And unless you're familiar with how to get around it, and they've changed it so much, that, you know, even I look at that and I wonder how anybody could even find their way down there. It's like a maze almost, you know, and I think they messed up when they took the parking garage out, because they parked a ton of cars down there.
Okay.
And without that parking, they blew it, you know.
All right.
Well, this is why I'm leading this movement.
The parking.
I am leaving the protest, the art. You want to join me in the movement?
I think I'm in.
I think you might be there with me. Carolyn from Belleville, what's on your mind?
Yes, I wanted to comment about the arch.
Go right ahead.
I went with my grandson from Belleville on the Metrolink because I wasn't sure about the parking situation. The arch itself is beautiful once you get inside, but walking from Metrolink to the arch is a long walk. And the man who called earlier who suggested a shuttle, I think that's a good idea. So a shuttle from Metrolink or from wherever the parking space is, I think that would be a good idea, because older people, my mother wanted to come, and I told her, you know, she wouldn't be able to do it because it's a lot of walking. I think that there is, there's too much walking involved, so that might be a part of the problem.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you
we're
very
about
much.
out of time
Yeah,
for
well, I was
calls.
going to say,
I think
the
we
quick
probably-
soapbox, real quick.
Wow.
90% of our calls were about the arch, okay? What does that tell us? That we still love the St. Louis
Yes,
Arch
it
here.
does.
And this is like kind of touching my heart because it is worth it, and so is St. Louis, and we proved that tonight.
Stay tuned for next week where we do an entire Donnybrook on ways to get to the arch. Thank you all for
Have
the
a great
calls,
night.
and we'll see you next week.
Stay warm.